So basically the thing it is that what I'm saying in previous class about the SSO. SSO means single sign-on. It means that your one credential is supposed to be work for all of your applications which is assigned to you or either in the project. So this is one of the protocol through which we can integrate or onboard lots of application with the help of such protocols in the Okta provides. Like as you know, Okta is right now behaving as an identity provider, and for Active Directory it is working as a service provider. Okay, if we have, if you wanted that Okta is behaving like an identity provider, so somehow you need to integrate with some other service provider applications so that user can access other applications for their project basis. So how this supposed to be happen? It is supposed to be happen with the help of such kind of protocols. Protocols means method. Methods means SSO authentication scheme. So over here, SW. SW is one of them. We call it as a secure web authentication. So how it is this method or this protocol is supposed to work? SW is a Okta term and referred to the method developed by the Okta itself. So SWA secure web authentication, this authentication method, it is designed by only with Okta. There is no such other industry or the tool who provide this such kind of protocol. So what exactly this secure web authentication do? It will work with the help of browser plugins. What it will do, whenever a user is trying to access a service provider application with the help of this protocol, so what it will do, it will securely pass the credential with the help of browser program in the form of web forms on the behalf of Okta user. Like if I am trying to access an application which is SWA based application, so if I am entering my credentials, so what will happen? That credential goes to the browser plugin. Browser plugin means whatever the browser you are having. Chrome, Internet Explorer, Firefox, Mozilla, whatever. So every browser having their own plugins, Okta plugins. So what it will do, it will bypass my credential. Means the browser takes my credential and similarly it will reflect back to the particularly identity provider or sorry service provider application. So SW is created by the Okta to provide single sign-on application that do not support proprietary features like single sign-on method or SAML. It is not other than like federation type of single sign-on method or SAML. It's a browser programming required. Whenever you require this type of SWA type of authentication, you always require Okta browser plugins. How it is look like plugins? These are all the plugins. Every browser having their own plugins. So these plugins are supposed to work whenever the SWA methodology you are supposed to use it. So if you are not using the Okta plugins or you are not supposed to use SWA authentication, so these plugins are not required on that. Some other things are supposed to be required for other protocols.
So SWA is basically is a secure web authentications, and it will work only in that the browser plugin. So what exactly it will do? It will securely bypass your credential in the web forms on the behalf of the user authentication. So like the example it is, if I'm trying to access an application with the help of this SWA authentication method or a protocol, so whenever I was just trying to access that application with my help of Okta, so it will take my Okta credentials to the browser plugin and bypass those credentials to the particularly application. Okay, so it's not like to entering your uh, credentials in a service provider application. It will be directly goes to the browser plugin and it will reflect back to the application. So whenever you required that type of SW authentication, so you always used Okta browser plugins is necessary required. So these all are the browser plugins which are having Okta supported. So Firefox also having that thing, and Chrome is also having that type of activity. So this is SWA is a secure web authentication. Basically, the thing it is that we are authenticating the web form in a secure manner with the help of this SWA authentication method and maintain the SSO part. Okay, so this is the one of the protocol which I'm trying to tell you about that thing. We can do the practical things later on. Okay, firstly we will just cover up whatever the protocols we have it we required for the SSO part. Okay, now the second protocol is we call it as a SAML. It is a very important protocol which is widely used, is basically defined as security assertion markup language. So what exactly the security part over here, what assertion markup language, why it is to be name it like that. So SAML is a XML based. It is XML based. Why it is XML based? Because whether we are exchanging any information in the internet or from one party to the another party, so there is a XML format. XML format it is used to transfer information from one identity provider to the another identity provider or the service provider. So XML based standard for exchanging authentication and the authorization, which is data between identity provider and the service provider. Like there is an example in the third row, like Okta sending an XML format in the form of SAML, and that is goes to the service provider application. Service provider means who is giving us some services like Box application, Zoom application, Slack applications. So whatever the application we are supposed to choose from the service provider side, so we need to use SAML format, means security assertion markup language. So why it is required over here? It is used to create secure connection between service provider and the identity provider, and it is going to authenticate. So service provider is not going to authenticate the user basically in this format, rather than trusting the security authentication assertion from the identity provider. What it is means, like if I am in the Okta, I am a person and I am a user, and I already authenticating myself in the Okta. Now from the dashboard, I choose one of the application, Box application. A Box application is assigned to me for work purpose or Zoom application. So once I click over there, so my credential is not going to be pass it on, okay, to the particularly service provider. Only that security authentication assertion which has already been done or at the time of integration with both of the application or both of the entities like identity provider and the service provider. So the user is supposed to be authenticated from that end. Okay. So like one example is over here like this way. Once a user is trying to access Box application, so what is happen? So from the service provider side, we can generate a SAML. SAML means security assertion markup language. It will generate a SAML and it will redirect to the Okta. Okta is an identity provider. Okay. From the Okta side, what will happen? It will authenticate the user and create the SAML response on the behalf of that the user authentication. Once it is done, the SAML response has to be goes to the Box application, and the Box application verify the SAML and log in the user who is trying to access the Box application. So this is how the things are supposed to be work in that the SAML format. There are two entities are we there. One is service provider One is identity provider, and the third entity is user who is trying to access that particularly application. So every time user trying to access a service provider application, its generation of the SAML has to be happened. And on the behalf of that thing, your identity provider will authenticate and also response on the SAML side. On the behalf of that thing, user can access that part. So in a general term, I will tell you one example. Like I am going to access one application, okay, and I am trying my Okta credential over there. Okay, so I am already authenticated with the Okta, but service provider application doesn't know about that part. So how the things has to be happen at the time of initial time when our integration part has to happen. On that time, a SAML generation, like a SAML generation means a SAML having some alphabetical or a list of attributes in that the particularly XML based file. It needs to be interchanged with the help of metadata from identity provider to the service provider. With the help of this authenticity, user get access in a particularly application. Okay. Yeah, these are some of the terms which are quite new for you, but once you are doing any such kind of practical, so it is quite easy to understand all of the things. Okay. Now the third is WS Federation. WS Federation is only used for the Microsoft applications. So right now we have only one application Microsoft is Office 365. That WS Federation is work only in O365 application, which is a Microsoft based. Those applications which are not supposed to be used for Microsoft based application, so they are not supposed to use that type of protocol. Some other protocol are supposed to use, but not this protocol. This protocol is only mandate to the Microsoft application.
So are there organizations that don't do Microsoft applications?
Sorry. So like yeah, the organizations are supposed to use that the Microsoft applications, and
What
the
I'm
thing it
saying
is
is,
to
are there other organizations that don't use Microsoft application? Because I'm trying to understand if there are situations where, because from what you said, that can only be used in where there's Microsoft applications.
the Microsoft application basically like O365 application is only that application the
Okay.
Microsoft using. So in the O365 you are supposed to use like your Office, your PowerPoint, everything. Okay.
Right.
So which is provided by the which is provided by Microsoft, and these applications are supposed to be used for your daily basis. Okay.
Okay.
So at the time of Okta integration with these O365 application, that purpose is only that thing to fulfill that the administrator tasks. Okay, to integrate that part. So we can use only WS Federation only that time. Okay. So if you are having like in your dashboard like five applications are with there. So
Okay.
one of the application is O365. So how this integration is going to be happen? That integration has to be done with the help of this WS Federation, and rest of the application are supposed to be integrated with some other protocols like SAML, SWA, as I told you, and OAuth, OIDC. So there are some other protocols which are supposed to be workable for other applications apart from
Okay.
O365. You're
Quick
welcome.
question. I think I missed something real quick. So all the
Uh,
tools that we just discussed now, the Samuel, what's that one? Um, then the
SWA.
uh, so that the WS, I didn't get to know what's the full meaning. Is it web services or what is that?
So secure web authentication basically it's not a web services, basically the thing it is to be that whenever we are trying to access the application which is supported, which is supposed to be supported for SWA only. So once it is supposed to be required, a browser plugin it is supposed to be there. It handle your credentials. Okay, it will store your credential over there in the browser plugins. So whenever you are trying to access that SW application, it will bypass your credential which are stored in the plugin and give it to that the particularly application to access the user. Okay, and SAML is completely different. It is work on metadata, XML, or some authentication part, authentication certificates. So over here, an assertion has to be generated and a response on the behalf of that thing produced by that the identity provider. Over here you can see the picture in your documents. And WS Federation, as I told you, only works for Microsoft applications. This is the import process. We already imported some users. Configure OIN application with SWA. So how the SWA is supposed to work, we can see in the practical and even like the SAML one also. Okay, so SAML one there are lots of applications are with there even for the SWA also.